Hey everyone, welcome to Frag Out Friday. I'm your host, as always, John Trigonometry Williams. Today we're going to be discussing gear considerations for your kit, your personal loadout, and kind of some trends I've been seeing across the industry over people posting on Instagram, Facebook, all the social medias, and even some things I'm seeing out of guys just building their kits, mostly in the civilian cycle. So yeah, let's just kind of like dive into it. Really what this is about is understanding that there is a huge difference between what the military uses, what police use, and what we as civilians would use. Obviously, I'm a retired military, but there's always a purpose for every design for every kit, right? So like, well, it's really cool to go out there and get the baddest ass shit and the coolest looking shit and be super tactical. Um, it's important to understand that when we're looking at somebody's kit, when they post a picture online of like, here, look at my kit. This is what I use. What is their job? What do they do? What do they use the kit for? There's an element to every single piece on that kit that is for a purpose. And so when we're looking at, I'm seeing this huge trend across, again, the entire industry, where everyone's like, oh, like the more slick I am, the faster I am, the cooler I am. You know what I mean? But realistically, is that going to work for you personally? And so like I feel like a huge portion of the people out there are designing their kit, especially in the civilian market, around this concept of being slick and fast, and because they think that's what's hot or cool or fresh or whatever it is. You know what I mean? But does it really work for you? Number one. Number two, are you training with it so that you can build an understanding of what the capabilities of that kit are? And three, is this kit built for kind of you as a person working solo, or do you have a buddy team that you're working inside of? Do you have a full like 4 or 5 man team, a squad plus? Like what is the element you're working inside of, and what does that kit build design? Like how does it fit into that concept, right? So the biggest trend that I'm seeing right now that's bleeding over into all these other areas is you're seeing basically here I'll kind of give you guys an idea. So if you look at this kit, for example, right, we got 3 mag pouches on the front. We've got a full, like what looks like could be almost a 3-day pack. I took out everything else, but like because we're focused on the kit, right? And so like we got 3 mag pouches up front, which means there really isn't much room for this. Definitely isn't a combat load of 210 plus rounds, right? So what this kit is designed for is more of like a direct action kind of like workspace, or something where a long engagement really isn't in the books for this setup, right? And so especially in the civilian market, if we have so many people prepping right now for this, like because realistically you don't this needing a kit is something very specific, right? So like if, for example, if I'm building my kit for this kind of like if I need to like defend my household, or if I need to like prep for some like end of time scenario where, or if we're being invaded by another country, or if it turns into Ukraine in your neighborhood, what do you need to really get out there and do the job? So this kit is great for a specific purpose, but it's not something that should be replicated in like I feel like in that scenario. So what I'm seeing, I think the unfortunate part about this is I'm seeing this kit, this style of kit where you've got maybe 2 mags or 3 mags up front. You know what I mean? Here's another one. Just 2 magazines, 2 rifle magazines, and 2 pistol magazines. This is not going to work for that typical end of times, or if we're being like an invasion scenario. It just isn't going to work. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's going to work, but for a very limited time. And if you're working inside of a team, or if there's someone else if they're counting on you to be able to like support them in their movement, because those combat roles and when you get into like that combat scenario, there's a lot of like moving and shooting and understanding like how to move, shoot, and communicate. And if you only have 2 magazines on you, you're not going to be able to provide that much cover. And obviously most people don't have machine guns, so having like your own internal support by fire, if you will, is going to be really limited by the amount of rounds that you're carrying, right? Here's another example, 3 magazines. Another example, here's another person here's with 2 magazines in their kit, maybe one in their gun. So that's 3 magazines, right? 90 rounds max. You know, that really isn't enough to support an extended engagement. And I can tell you right now, in all the firefights I've ever been in, I've never thought to myself, man, I really wish I had less rounds. I really wish I had less ammo. It's just never happened to me. Whether it be a short engagement or a long engagement. And the thing is, you never know how long an engagement's going to last. I've been in really short, like less than 30-minute firefights that were just like an engagement and people broke contact. And I've been in hours long firefights where it lasted a long time and there was lots of things, moving parts. But the main idea is that there's no way that I would have ever lasted with 2 magazines on me. And I wouldn't have been able to support any of my people in my team, especially if I'm working with a team, with just a couple magazines. Like, having a full combat load to me is super important. And if you're like, oh well, it's heavy, well, my answer is go fucking work out. Like, go train so that you can carry the weight of those things. And yeah, I mean, running slick and with less rounds can be beneficial to some people's SOPs, police, SWAT, right? Because they're like a direct action. They're going in to handle like one particular threat. And you know, the biggest thing with designs like this, right, is that they have support, right? People that are running kits like this typically are working inside a squad plus sized element where they have not just the support of their team, but they have like other digital supports. Like, they've got drone support. Or if we're talking about military, obviously we have CAT, we have close air support, we have, you know, ordnance we can drop if we have to. You know, there was even times when we would get into firefights and it's like, man, we were running low on ammo. And we were relying, even with a full combat load, we were relying on ordnance to get out of there. So, and you have to remember something about that concept, like, because I hear all the time, like, oh well, that's the military. That'll never be what I'm facing, or that'll never be like anything like that. Like, even if you didn't get invaded, let's just say that shit has kind of hit the fan and there's skirmishes breaking out in places. Like, you have to understand, like, this was the might of the U.S. military, and we were taking on dudes with no training with AKs. You know what I mean? And they still had the ability at times with IEDs and other, you know, homemade stuff to like pin us down and do damage. So you have to consider that when you're building your kit, that while there's all this, you know, whatever's trendy can be really cool, can be really fascinating, and they have definite use cases for those things. It's not really what most people, even in the military, should be using. I've even seen pictures of guys in the Army, the Marine Corps, you know, taking like moto pics or whatever, which is good for them, whatever. But they've got like 3 mags up front, and you're working in a team of dudes, and you're like talking about a combat scenario. Like, there was never a time when I worked in either Iraq or Afghanistan when anyone carried just 3 magazines or 2 magazines and one in their gun. It's just not a thing. You don't even go to post with that. Like, it really doesn't make sense to me. For the common person, like, if this is like your end all be all kit, it doesn't work. Now, if you have this kit for, I'm gonna go work on the job somewhere, and like, you know, this will get me through to the point where I can cover myself, maybe break contact and call for backup. Cool. That's what this is for, right? But this isn't someone's like only kit. This is for a specific job or a specific SOP that works inside of that because of the way that the rest of the organization is developed and the way that the support is given, right? But again, for someone who's just going out there, you want to go spend money on a kit, you want to go buy, you know, invest into your kit so that when, you know, if you ever need it, you can depend on it. Without a doubt, you should be carrying a combat load, and then whatever else you have on your gear is going to be, you know, meant to sustain yourself, right? So, for example, having, you know, at least 6 mags up front, one in your gun, or maybe even one more double mag pouch, so you're running 8 mags. You can put some stuff on your sides. You can carry enough. You can put on enough other pouches where you can carry enough water purifier, maybe a little bit of just like a snack just to tide you over in case some shit happens, and some way to like build a shelter or something like that. Those are kind of your key elements that you want to have on your kit. And like, yeah, you can run a 3-day pack or a larger pack depending on like how far out you plan on going or whatever the case is. But if shit hits the fan, also like there might be a time when like you get separated from that kit for some reason, or something happens where as crazy as it sounds, right? Like you could have something that severs, something could happen and one of the straps gets severed, and now you're running through bullshit or trying to get away from something, and you're stuck with one strap and you're like struggling to like run because you're all off balance. Like there might be a scenario where you get separated from your pack, and if that's the case, can you survive with what's on you, or and even if you don't have all the gear on you, do you have the knowledge to sustain yourself? And that's a huge portion of all this as well, right? And so our knowledge and the way that we think about things can also really help us develop our kit. Like this is a great kit. I can't really say anything bad about it. Look at all that ammo. I'm just kidding. But this is actually kind of closer to what I'm talking about. You'll see there's a full combat load up front. There's 6 mags. There'll be 1 in your gun. They've got a comms piece. They've clearly got like an IFAK on one side, another pouch where they can store other useful materials, and they've got two pistol mags up top. This is a great kit, in my opinion. There's clearly a water source attached to the back. This to me is a great kit. And I think that this is kind of like closer to where the average person should be. If your main gun is going to be your rifle, then you should carry more rifle mags. If your pistol is your backup, that's what you do. Now there are SOPs and there are units out there where their primary weapon is their pistol and the rifle is the backup. That's the way it is for most PDs even, right? Like they've got a rifle in the truck with a couple mags. Great. Maybe they got 5 mags on them. They've got 3 on their belt and 2 on their rig. Great. That's perfect for what they do, But when you're talking about most of the people that I'm seeing build kits out there, especially in like the civilian side, and again seeing it bleed over to the military side, the military should not be allowing that. I know that my seniors would have never allowed that. That's just insanity. It does not work. There's a lot of people that talk about like, oh, when it comes to that, it's preference, like what feels good to you. It's like, nah, there's still a level of like tactical consideration that needs to happen when you're building your kit. And running around in that kind of scenario or in a combat scenario with a few magazines or a couple magazines as extra, and with your rifle being your primary weapon is not one of those things. So I hope you guys really enjoyed this Frag Out Friday. The next one we're going to be covering, we're going to be doing some gear reviews, but this was just an initial like kit consideration and kind of what my take on it is. If you guys have any questions or comments, please leave them below. And I'll see you guys next time. As always, stay loose, battle on, and if you have bitch in your heart, it will show.